Hi, everybody. Welcome to Saturday, our Saturday training. Every Saturday we do this. So welcome. Make sure that you subscribe as you go so that you get any notifications of the topics that we're doing this way, whichever week we're doing. So this week we're going to be talking about the conference and whether you did go, how you managed that, how you can manage conferences in the future, educators, service providers, all of you together. So I'm going to talk about conferences today. So did you go to the conference? Hang on, I'm going to move this because I don't like that there. Yeah, I'll put that over there. There you go. So did you go to the conference? And if you did, I hope you had a wonderful time. Conferences are great. Conferences are great for people that want to share ideas, want to gain ideas, want to get inspiration. So conferences, I love a good conference. And if you're anything like me, you'll also find that going to a conference gives you time away from your ordinary everyday. Now, why won't this allow me to go forward? There it is, as long as I know where it is. Okay, so did you know that 99% of services that go to conference report an overall improvement to their service over a 12-month period? So many services have one or two people go, and that information gets shared back, and we see a drastic improvement in services that regularly attend conferences. We know that 100% of people that do attend conferences report more job satisfaction. They have more information to help them. They feel more resourced. They feel more inspired. So conferences lead to a lot more job satisfaction. 79% of attendees at conferences report immediate inspiration that they bring back to their service or their program for immediate shift and immediate change. So we know that the benefits, already I'm telling you the benefits. And we know that 70% reported increased confidence. And sometimes that's around at a conference. It's not always necessarily learning new skills. It's about having the skills that you have validated. And when you're listening to guest speakers, or if you are gathering information at a conference, sometimes it's often in your own head. You're like, yeah, I can do this. I do this already. So we know that professional confidence does actually come from attending a conference also. All right. So this is what we've been talking about. We've been talking a lot about the mindset of an educator and what really is the stronger mindset to be in when we are delivering or providing an education and care service. Family daycare educators, unlike their centre-based counterparts, they are business owners. They are self-employed business owners. And, whether you like that or not, that is essentially what it is. They're operating under their own ABN. They're, in many cases, getting their own families enrolled and, not enrolled, but engaged and advertising and marketing, all those sorts of things. And we know that family daycare educators that have a mindset or a business approach to their business, we know that they're more inclined to enter into partnerships with service providers. So there's not that position where, you hear a lot of service providers say things like, if I don't do this for the educators won't do it themselves. Or you hear educators saying, I don't know what the service provider's meant to be doing. I'm not sure what our levy goes to. So we know that the family daycare educators that have that mindset, they're more inclined to enter into a partnership with you, and those responsibilities are delegated across between the educator and the service provider. So we know that it does strengthen the model across the board, that we definitely know that. As business owners, family daycare educators are operating in a highly regulated sector, so there is that expectation that they meet the National Quality Framework, that they can meet the regulations in a home environment around privacy, confidentiality, all those sorts of things. So it is a very highly regulated sector. And having said that, it is also a sector that is quality controlled through our ratings and assessment process. So, and I know I say this all the time, and right now as I record this, every family daycare service in Australia is pretty much due their rating and assessment. So it's, due to the pandemic and all sorts of things got held up. So most of you are due for a rating and assessment this coming year or next year, so it will happen. We also know that family daycare educators do work in isolation. They are often in their home with the children, developing their program and all of the other obligations that come with running a small business. We know that they do that in isolation, and we really want to try and stop that and assist educators be better at what they do, take the pressure off them. How many educators do we hear say that, you know, at night, once all the children go home, they've got their own family commitments, they've got all this to do, plus they've got their work to do for their own business. So we want that a little bit shifted, that even if educators are working outside of their hours to get things done, that there is some kind of reward for that, and that comes down to their business and their financial planning. We know that with most family daycare educators and family daycare services, even exceeding services, there is always room for improvement. There is always room for a little bit more diversity. There is a lot more room to help educators build their resources. Even I see educators all the time saying, I would love that climbing frame out the back, but I can't get it right now, and So we definitely know that there is room for improvement in family daycare. And you will often, those of you who do follow me, and I've got a number of followers now, those of you who do follow me know that I do advocate for self-directed learning. We are in a time where almost everything is at your fingertips, and you can do your learning from your couch, and you can read online, and you can get things sent to your inbox. So that's a really good tool to have if you know what if you like have got a question and you know what you want, you can self-direct that learning and find that learning for yourself. And we also know that with family daycare educators, they do have long-term goals, and I'm sure you've got long-term goals, and you had this image coming into this about running your own program, what that would look like, how you would do that. And in many cases, without the right skills and support, you can't achieve those goals by yourself. It is, you know, what do they say? It takes a village and all that. So we definitely know that. So when we talk about the mindset of an educator and what are those values and what are those skills and what are those aptitudes that we need to be looking for with family daycare educators, and again, I believe that most of it is underpinned by having some business skills, some customer service skills, but it's also around conferencing. It's also around getting together with their peers and being inspired and being told new things, and see what new resources are out there on the market. And often, particularly in family daycare, when they see those resources, they don't have a boss like a centre-based educator does, where they go back to their boss and say, oh, I saw this great thing at the conference, you know, can we invest $2,000 in this? And the service provider will go, yes, that's fine, we can put that in the budget or whatever. With family daycare educators, they have to manage their budget themselves. So if you want your family daycare educators to go to conferences, before you start planning, I want you to really think about a few key things as a service provider, what a conference would mean for you and your service. So firstly, there is a peak body for each service type. So there's Family Daycare Australia for family daycare. There's ELA for incorporated associations, such as kindergartens, community managed services, those sorts of things. And then there's community childcare, and community childcare is also for incorporated associations in long day care. So that's different again, where they're non-for-profits, and that is where the parents are members of the association. They're not necessarily a customer. Whereas with a high portion of family daycare, there's not a great deal of non-for-profit family daycare services. There's most of them are for-profit, so it's got that business arrangement rather than a membership arrangement. So so depending on your philosophy, depending on you know what you want for your service and what that is, you can join each of those peak bodies. But as a family daycare provider or a family daycare educator, I would say go to the family daycare peak body, and somebody like myself can be an associate member, whereas you guys can be a full member and you get full advantage to what Family Daycare Australia does for family daycare. Okay, now we do know that Services do manage their conference attendances all differently, and sometimes with family daycare, because the educator has to fund that themselves. So approved providers will go to the conference and on behalf of the entire service and bring that information back. Often approved providers will have their coordinators or somebody from their leadership team attend one of the conferences or the conference. And that would be funded through the service. So in most cases, we kind of see that. There are also some services that may nominate one or two educators to go and may pay the full fee for that educator to go. There are some services also that may have a system in place where educators apply to go. So they might have 10 applications from educators that want to go to the conference, and the service will choose 1, 2, or 3, and they will support that educator in some way, whether that be contributing to the cost or whatever that looks like. So we know that there are different ways that family daycare services do handle their conference attendance. Now, one of the really important thing about peak bodies is peak bodies work on our behalf, whatever sector we're in, and we're really lucky to have a peak body that does focus on family daycare, and they, will talk to the government about different things and how that affects family daycare. So they do play an advocacy role in everything that we do. So I power in the numbers and all that, and it's very much like a union kind of thing. So the more numbers we have, the more members we have in our peak body, then the stronger that peak body is. So if you're not a member of the peak body, make sure you jump on and become a member. It is actually really affordable, and they can give you a lot of resources and a lot of support. So make sure you find that out. Of what they can do for you. And as I say here, I kind of do believe, whichever service type you're in, that we are kind of obligated we have a duty to support our peak body because they do support us. So if I were working in long daycare, I would go to community childcare. If I were working in family daycare, of course, I would go family daycare. So that's how I would do it. And as you all know, I am a national consultant with ALA as well. So I also help out those services. So how do you choose who goes to these conferences? So if you are a service provider and you do have limited funds, but you want that conference experience in your service, so how do you choose that? Firstly, each conference has its own themes. So some of them would be, focused on leadership. Some of them may be focused on the educational program. Some of them may be focused on a whole range of things. So firstly, have a look at the theme of the conference and who you feel in your leadership team would be better positioned for that. So if it is focused on operations and management, let's say, then that may be your service coordinator. If it's focused on the educational program or building in sustainable practices or those sorts of things, then that may be your educational leader, or that could be the approved provider or nominated supervisor that attends the conference. So have a look at your themes, have a look at the cost, and also have a look at the staff as an individual, because going to conferences is an investment. And it's an investment financially, but it's an investment financially for that individual staff member. So let's just say I'm your service coordinator and you're investing the money for me to attend a conference, which sometimes includes flights and accommodation, those sorts of things. That can be an expense. And if you haven't budgeted for that expense, then, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but if you haven't budgeted for that expense, that is a fairly large investment. So as with any business principle, what is your return on investment? So if you were to send me as your service coordinator, you don't want me to go if I'm 8.5 months pregnant and ready to go on maternity leave or anything like that. So you need to choose the right staff member that is going to be able to transfer the new knowledge that they've gained, the new information that they've gained over to the service. So when you're thinking about who should go, yes, it would be contributed to by the role that somebody's in, but it would also contribute to the person as an individual and whether that person does have the opportunity to bring that information back to your service, because that's the goal with learning, particularly at conferences, is that information comes back into your service so that everybody benefits from it. Okay. Now, budgeting for conference. So the recent conference, I did the costings. Now I'm in Victoria, and the conference was held in Hobart. So I costed out flights, accommodation, meals, Uber from the airport even. So when you cost all that out, that one conference was around a $3,000 price point. So that's nothing to sneeze at. I wish I could just give away 3,000. So it's nothing to sneeze at. So it is an investment. So for educators, we'll talk a little bit about how you can manage your budget so that you are allocating some money for conferences. You might decide that, okay, you'll only go to a conference. I think family daycare conferences are every 3 years anyway, but so that's still $1,000 a year that you've got to accumulate so that you can attend the conference if you wanted to. For service providers, you've got to think about the size of your service, the value that brings to your service by having your leadership team attend a conference, and how are you allocating that money. So most of you, and I've seen many of your budgets, most of you have a line item in your budget for training and professional development. Often that relates to the training and professional development that you're delivering to educators, but you really need to have some training and professional development funds allocated to your leadership team. And that can include conferences, that can include coaching, that can include a whole range of things. So make sure when you are doing your budget that you've considered your role in conferences and what your service would like to do. So we know that policy in practice is informed by professional development. We know that policy in practice, particularly around conferencing, helps that policy come to life for many attendees at a conference. So we do know that it is a way of supporting your staff and supporting your educators so that you as a service provider or you as an educator can implement those policies that we need to have in place to make sure that we're compliant, that we've got all of our ducks in a row, so to speak, and that we are on a continual improvement path. So policy in practice, depending on your policy, I read policies all the time that state things like, we mentor and support educators, and sometimes when I see it in practice, like, well, do you? You might have that, you do professional development to have a shared understanding. So what does that look like for you? So going beyond the policy, going beyond compliance, conferences is one of those professional development tools that every service should at least consider, cost out, plan out, and if you didn't go this year, then put a plan in place to go next time they have a conference. All right. And it does really show a commitment to your team by investing in them at that level, because going to a conference, we know, is a big investment for the service. So most of us that go because of our employers, we are very grateful that we get to go, and I love going to a conference. Conferences are fabulous. So staffing in family daycare, it is the approved provider's responsibility to make sure that people in leadership positions are delegated to that role appropriately, so they hold the skills, the qualifications, the aptitude in order to take on a leadership role. And because family daycare does have the model that it does, unlike centre-based where we're all in the same building and you can monitor and support and coach and be with staff and educators all day, it's very different in family daycare where family daycare educators are scattered sometimes quite away from the primary office. So again, it is really about making sure that your educators feel valued, that they feel supported, and that there is a way you can help them with that. Some of this is not only like staying current, yes, and best practice, yes. Sometimes the approved provider, in advocating for professional development or in advocating for conference attendance, find that you do need to sit down with the educator and work out a budget and review their rates to make sure that that is affordable for their small business. So we definitely want those kind of supports put in place for educators. Okay, so again, still on policy and practice, imagine when with all that new learning, all the new studies that are coming out, all the findings that we've had in between conferences, it all helps build our practice, it all helps build our thinking. And of course, once we translate that into policy, once you've got motivated educators, once you've got educators that have a real buy-in to learning, once you have educators that are really inspired about their program, we know that that does contribute to the governance and management of the service. And we also know that by continuing to improve practice and informing educators and inspiring educators, we know that that does bring about embedding practice. And if you've had a couple of people go to a conference, those conversations that shift because of the conference, the conversations that potentially shift with any professional development, we know that that is the key, one of the keys of making sure that any practice is embedded in your service, because then it just becomes like, this is what we do here. And that really is embedded practice. So you might be able to say, well, we always go to the conference. We value the conference. We see the benefit of the conference. So for here, it's not a problem for us. We budget for it. We make sure that over our leadership team, we have a balance of who goes which time. We support educators to go. So yes, my service does have a commitment to conferencing, and we see the value in that. And that is the culture of your service, and that's great. And that's what we want to get to, because it does, as I said with those numbers before, we know that 100% of conference attendees do report over a 12-month period improvement across the entire service. So now, educators, if you want to go to a conference, you've got to allocate that in your budget. Now, I know many people go, oh, a budget for an educator? Well, as a small business owner, you need to have a budget, and you need to make sure that you're covering all of your costs, and you need to make sure that there are no hidden costs. And I often use celebrations as the example there. If you've got 5 or 6 celebrations that you go all out for each year, Mother's Day, Father's Day, those type of things, then have you allocated an additional cost for your celebrations? And it's exactly the same principle with conferences. If you want to do conferences, or if you want to do professional development, how are you going to pay for that? You don't want to take that money off your mortgage for your professional development, and in most cases people won't, so therefore they don't go. However, if you do budget for that in your budget, if you allocate money for that in your budget, by the time the next conference comes around, your business is paying for you. And that's what we want. We want our businesses to pay for our professional development. I know I want my business to pay for my professional development, that's for sure. And if you are committed to a conference as an educator, make sure that you pop that in your handbook so that families are aware of the values of going to a conference, how much benefit they will get for their children by you attending a conference, or by you attending any professional development. So make sure that parents are informed about the value add of professional development. And then, down the track, you won't get parents go, oh my God, I can't believe you're closing for a day or 2 days. So we want parents to understand that if you do need to close for a conference, can't provide care, or if you do take 1 day a month as professional development, that's a good thing for everybody to be a part of. And if they are informed and educated, then they will support it, I guarantee you. Oh, I think we've got that one. Or did I go back? No, I've done that. Yeah, that slide's been doubled. So sorry about that. Okay, so educators, when you are developing your budget to include any conferences or to include any professional development, that is a really good time to look at your rates, and if your rates are covering your at least an opportunity for you to develop a professional plan. And as I said before, there's so much self-directed learning and so much free information out there that you can do that, but you will need to invest depending on what your plan is, where you want to go, if you did want to go to a conference. So you would need to plan for that and make sure you've got those funds. So reviewing your rates, making sure you've got that extra little bit of money over so that you can put aside for that sort of thing. What is your purpose for going to a conference? And the purpose is around, and it varies for different people, it's around meeting their peers. It's around being exposed to new ideas. It might be around getting away for a couple of days. What is your purpose? Is your purpose to increase your rates? Is your purpose to be more recognized? What is your purpose of going? And once you go through that process, you can actually renegotiate your contract with the approved provider. And approved providers really should want you to be committed to professional development and should want you to go to conferences ideally. So how can you renegotiate that in your contract with approved providers? Can you say, look, I'm really committed to this. How would you contribute? And you may find that many approved providers will support you at some level to achieve your professional development plans that fall outside of what the service offers you as far as training. And don't forget, this is always around improvement. So the topic that we've been talking about today, improvement from the conference content that you receive or the inspiration that you receive. There's always improvement for budgets and allocation of funds. There's always improvements around negotiating your contract with approved providers so that you can get support in professional development, whatever that looks like. And it's also about engaging your families. So there's quite a lot in here today, isn't there, really, when we think of it that way? Now, I say all the time, review, improve, embed. So by knowing your purpose, by knowing that you have a cost-effective way of operating your business, and knowing that that capital investment is good for either going to a conference or, capital investment can also relate to you want that lovely play climbing equipment in your yard, and you see other people on Facebook with this beautiful yard and you want that. You can have that, but you may not be able to get that this year. And again, you don't want to pay for that climbing equipment out of your mortgage. So you want the business to pay for that. So if you know you want the climbing frame and you costed it out and it's going to cost you $4,000 to get that climbing frame, and then you look at your rates, you've got all the rates that you can have, you're getting paid for everything and everything's fine, then you should have that profit or that surplus of money that can be allocated to your capital growth. Now, I recommend that if you are planning like that, so you are putting money aside, allocating money to a conference or equipment or whatever that is, put that in a separate bank account so that it doesn't get lost or chewed up in your operational budget, and that money is sitting there for your capital growth as you go. That's we give that advice to approved providers all the time. Okay, so most of this is, as I've already said, there's a whole lot of learning in here today, but this does really underpin the business mindset of a family daycare educator. So if by embracing these concepts and building these skills, you'll find that you'll be able to run your business, which is much more successful financially. You'll find that you will be far more committed to your business, and therefore you'll be able to negotiate on your business's behalf and speak with your approved provider and look at your contract and those sorts of things. You'll also, with your improvement and your business skills, you'll also have better customer service skills. So therefore your engagement with families is better, and you're educating families as to why you need that professional development and why you need to put money aside to do that. What are the benefits of that? So there is a lot in this. Now, promotion and marketing, and we do talk about marketing and branding here also, but if families know that you're going to the conference to better the program, and then you come back and you're inspired and they see all this change, what do you think families are going to do with that? They're going to go to their friends and their colleagues and they're going to say, can you believe what my educator did? My educator went to this conference and came back with a sustainability program. Do you know how much my children are learning about sustainability? Families that are really happy with your work, they want others to know that. It's really different in a lot of ways to say like buying a dress. It's not like buying a dress. People don't necessarily advocate for the price of their dress, but if they believe their children are getting something that other children may not be getting, parents are proud that they've been able to provide that, and parents are proud that they've chosen you as their educator. So by implementing a lot of these strategies, it actually does work as like an internal or a word of mouth promotion for your business. So make sure you remember that, because it does push your business forward. So these are the business strategies that I talk about all of the time. And as you know, I rabbit on and rabbit on and rabbit on about how important business skills are for family daycare educators. You are operating your own home business. It really is that simple. And I want you to have these really simple business skills so that you can underpin all of the regulation, all of the regulatory choices that you have to make, that it underpins all of your obligations as a family daycare educator under both pieces of the legislation, the education and care legislation and the family assistance legislation, and that you have these principles in place to protect yourself. Okay, so I'm always rabbiting on. Now, I do put some links here. So there's a free business plan template you can jump into. There's the Business of an Educator course you can jump into, and I'll pop both of the links in here for you so that you can access those courses. So as I said, I'll tell you just a little bit about the business of a family daycare educator. And I say this kind of stuff all the time. You don't need an MBA. You don't need to go off and do a 12-week business course. Absolutely, you can if you want. But I've put together the business of a family daycare educator, which is about, I think it's about 7 hours worth of training. And it goes through a number of different models, including financial planning. There is a spreadsheet in there that's already formulated. So all you have to do is punch in your numbers and your bottom line will automatically be calculated for you. It also talks about customer service principles. What's that customer service approach when engaging new families? There's a branding and marketing section. How do you bring your philosophy to life so that when you do advertise on Facebook, you're able to, do that properly. You're able to attract your target audience and families that align with your philosophy. It also talks about developing your philosophy or reviewing your philosophy and how you can use that to your advantage. I see educators all of the time that, families leave without notice and they've lost that money. They've got nowhere else to go. So this course also talks about how you can get some kind of waiting list in place so that you can mitigate those risks. And there's also a unit on risk management, how you can manage the risks in your business, which a lot of it does come down to fees, and it's not necessarily the rate of your fees. Sometimes it's that fee structure. So, do you have casual care days, and what does that look like for you? And what are your late fees like? And so all those sorts of things. So it covers off a whole range of things in that course. And it does, you will be able to review your rates and make sure that you are getting paid your worth. And if you're not, you might be with a service provider that won't renegotiate with you, which I doubt, but you may be. And it may help you make the decision, do I go to another service provider? And it's not always about the levy that they charge, it's about a whole range of things. But do you go to another service provider? Can I renegotiate my rates? So, because if you review your rates and you discover hidden costs, then, if you can show that to your approved provider and say, look, these are the rates that when I first started, we worked on these rates. However, once I've done this exercise and I've identified all of the costs associated with it, including any of the paperwork and administration tasks that I do outside of hours when I'm not looking after and providing care for children. So it gives you that knowledge, and this is an investment in yourself. And I say this also to people all of the time. These business skills that we've put together for educators, they're transferable and you can build on them. So if you're a family daycare educator, this course will get you started on that business track. If you go into a leadership role, you've already got the basic principles there. You've got the basic foundations there of business, and you can always build on those. However, I kind of do believe if you've got the basic principles, you're pretty right. And I've done an MBA, but you probably don't need to do an MBA. So make sure that when you check out the course, and make sure that you might have to put some capital money aside to do that, but that one is definitely worth the investment, and it's under $300. So why would you not, for 7 hours or 6 hours professional development? So that's everything there today. I hope you have a wonderful Saturday today. If you've got any questions, sign up for my newsletter, which I'll pop that link in here also. Sign up for the newsletter. It's the only place where you can access a free consult with me, and I'm happy to jump on and do free consults, but that's the only place where where you can access them from now. I will be back next Saturday with the new training, so hopefully I'll see you then. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And remember, plan for conferences. Conferences are great professional development, and we'd love to see everybody at the next conference, all of our family daycare colleagues and friends. So I would love to do that. And as a governance advisor, I absolutely advocate for conference attendance, and I try to get to as many as I possibly can too. So enjoy your weekend. See ya. Bye.